Hello everyone, welcome back to this look back at my old superhero characters that I made and worked on through pretty much all of my adolescence. We're just going to pick right back up where we left off last week with Magneta here. I always misread her name as Magenta whenever I look back at this, but this is a Starfire picture that I redrew here for this character, but she other than the picture, she has nothing to do with Starfire, though. She was basically like a female heroic Magneto character, hence the Magneta, the basically Magneto but feminized. But she was she was a member of or associated with that teen superhero group you've heard me talk about a few times. In fact, I think she was supposed to be a love interest for Justice, if you can remember that far back. Where was he? Yeah, this guy. I think, and I don't know if I'm saying that just because like he's kind of Nightwing-ish and she's Starfire-ish, or if there was some other reason why that was the case. I don't really remember. I remember that she was supposed to have some kind of like tragic end to her superhero career. I don't remember the details about it. That's just the one thing I remember the best about this character, besides the fact that she had magnetic powers, was that she was going to have some kind of tragic end, but I don't remember the details to that. But that's really it for her, not too much. Moving on, Matthew and Harold here. This is a really old drawing. It looks bad compared to some of the others. But Matthew and Harold were the twin sons of two superheroes that we'll see later. They're further back in the heroic section here, but their parents were two psychic-based superheroes, two superheroes that had psychic powers. And there was, I don't remember every detail about their story, but basically when they were born, there was this kind of anomaly going on. The closer the twins got to each other once they were like out and in the hospital, and so they ended up having to keep them in separate rooms and eventually decided that they couldn't ever be close to each other, so they were separated. And I don't remember if one of them stayed with the original parents or not, but basically once they got to be about the age you see here, where they're probably like 7 or 8, their psychic powers were developing more, and they could, I think they had like split powers, like one had more like telekinetic type powers and one had more like telepathic powers, but they started being able to sense each other, and so their story involves them finding each other at this very young age. I don't know why I had them dressed in suits. I think it was just to make them look creepy, because I wanted them to be kind of like the Shining twins or something like that, just to have that kind of effect. But essentially, their story would start out with them already being this age. Their parents had been retired for a while. Though their parents would have had their own stories back earlier, because all of these stories were meant to be told chronologically, and that there would be like a flow and evolution of the world as it went. So by the time that the Matthew and Harold were born, they're both very isolationist. They have no friends. They don't relate to other people at all, but they start sensing each other, and so they both run away. And eventually they find each other, and when they do, their psychic powers start kind of mingling, and they physically merge into a new character who we'll get to maybe in this episode. He's not too far back here. But they become a new character, and I'll talk more about their story then. But they don't, they didn't have more than that one story about them, but I wanted to have the like a drawing of these characters in here to help me remember that. So moving on here, Max Powers. Max Powers, when I made him, I wanted like a Booster Gold type hero. Like not necessarily that he's from the future, but like this sort of like corporate kind of I don't know the right word here, but this kind of mascot-y type superhero. You see his logo is a bit more complex. It says Max, and like the A is this big star that goes across. And it was the idea was that it would look more like a corporate logo, or like something that a committee would put together, or like a team of people working in some kind of like just some people sitting in an office drafting up a logo for their superhero that they fund. But he's, you know, he's earnest and like sincere in his desire to be a hero, but he's also kind of like pushing this Powers brand. I don't remember too much about where his story was supposed to go. He was supposed to be involved in the superhero team that I made in college, that I've talked about several times in this series, that I don't remember as well because it was towards the end of my, like, in the waning years of my interest in this project. But he was supposed to be involved with that team, and I think eventually leave the company, which was probably like, I don't know, like Powers Incorporated, or maybe Max Powers was the actual company name too. But he was supposed to leave them and join up with the superhero team after they'd been around for a while, and after he'd had a few adventures with them, and become like a new member of that team. So that's that. Moving on over here. So I have some memories of Mecha here. Most of what I remember about him is that he was based off of a droid that I thought was really cool in this Star Wars Guide to Droids book that I had at the time. And I think it was like a medical droid. I don't remember a lot about it, but his design is basically exactly it. I'm trying to remember. He was part of he was part of a team with Insect Man, who we saw earlier, and a couple of other people. And I don't remember the specifics of the team. I remember when I was making the team. This is all I can remember, and I'm sorry that this is going to be vague and not helpful, but I remember that I had, for some reason, listed out a number of like gimmicks. Like I was like, okay, so I'll have a team where there's like a bug person and there's a robot, and I don't remember why. Part of me wants to say that it was that I was like, I had seen some like team lineup in something else, and I thought that's cool. I'll emulate that by having like a character with a similar gimmick to each of the members of this team. But I have no idea what team it would have been, and I can't remember all the members of this team. I had forgotten that Insect Man was in a team. I remember he had a love interest character, but I can't remember now the other members of this team. But I remember now Mecha was supposed to be a member of that team, but he's just a robot. I'm trying to remember who built him or how he was constructed, because the more I look at this drawing, the more I kind of remember some of the plans I had for him. That he was I think, you know what? I think he might have been built by Dr. Ray. I'm sorry that this is so disconnected here. I'm just remembering as I think about it, because I hadn't thought about this team in a long time, but now I think about it, I think Insect Man's love interest I was talking about was Dr. Ray. And I think either her or her and Insect Man together built Mecha as part of their team. And I'm pretty sure that the three of them were a team for a while. I had forgotten that. I'd forgotten that Dr. Ray was part of a team. It had slipped my mind. But now that I think about it, and I think even looking back here, I put Insect Man behind her for that reason on this cover. So this is just an example of how this is going to go for me, because I don't remember everything, and sometimes I remember things as I'm looking at them or talking about them, and just the act of talking about them jogs my memory. So that's Mecha. He was basically just a robot. I think he was supposed to be kind of like, going back to his Star Wars roots, I think he was supposed to be kind of like C-3PO, but punching things. So maybe a bit more like the droid that was in I can't remember the name of the most recent Star Wars movie right now, but I'm blanking on the name of the film. My brain got into this track of trying to remember my superhero characters, and now I can't remember modern pop culture because I'm trying to remember things I created a decade ago. But anyway, he was going to be like a real polite gentleman type robot, but also one that would like throw down and get into like a bare knuckle brawl, as bare knuckle as a robot could get, of course. But that was it. He was just a robot that could punch things with robot power. Mesmera here is the mother of Matt and Harold. I had mentioned that they had parents who were superheroes, and Mesmera had kind of a hypnotic power. She couldn't directly mind control people, but she could like induce trance-like states on antagonists and stuff. And she worked together with her husband. They were a duo, and she was more like a support character in that she would, distract people or use her vague mesmeric powers. I don't think her power set was ever clearly defined, but that was her. And again, she was the mother of Matthew and Harold, and that's kind of it. Her husband's like at one of the very last ones of the superheroes because he has a weird name that starts with an X, I think. So he'll be a lot later. But her and her husband were going to have a bunch of adventures on their own and then retire. And then later, Matthew and Harold would have their story and all of that I was talking about then. Mr. America here, it's been a while since we've seen another member of the Superheroes of America, but I had mentioned that each of the members of that team was based off of like a parody of concept or like a, not even a parody or deconstruction, those words aren't really right, but they were just supposed to be like a mean-spirited version of one of the main Marvel or DC superheroes. And Mr. America was like this jaded, cynical version of Batman, like more so than Batman himself. And mostly what I mean by that is just that Mr. America did not have, he didn't have superpowers, so he was more along the gadget side of things like Batman, and he had like intense training, and he was I think like a secret agent or something along those lines, like basically like James Bond, but for the United States instead of for England. And then when they were putting together the superhero team, they gave him this costume and this new identity. His cape is, I don't know if you can tell, but his cape is an American flag. He's got these stars on him. And then he basically used his secret agent background to assist the Superheroes of America team. We should be seeing a lot more of them because there was several members of that group. But now that I think about it, I think Captain Amazing is the only other time I've talked about that group. Okay, Mr. Hero. Oh gosh, I'm trying to remember. So Mr. Hero, I remember he had like a white and gold aesthetic, and I remember that he was supposed to be like this really big like power player, but who wasn't super active. Like he was gonna be on like in the top tier as far as like if you were to group all of the heroes by like power level. He'd be at the top with like the Superman analogs and things like that. But I don't remember much about him beyond that. I think he had like the typical like flight and super strength and stuff. I think he could also phase through things as a power. And he might have had some kind of telekinetic powers. I don't remember anything about like his origin or who he was as a person. And it's possible he was more of a like writing device than a character. Like I don't think he was gonna have his own ongoing stories, or if he did, I didn't think about them very often because I don't remember anything about who he was. I just remember like his role in like the world as like this big power player that rarely came into anything, but he might play into like large events or things like that, but didn't actually have his own stories, so the reader wouldn't know him that well, and he'd be kind of a mysterious figure. Moving on, Morph. Okay, Morph. Yeah, Morph was another scientist with Dr. Ray. Now that I think about it, Insect Man might have been one of them too. That was on the mission that found Viglanium. There were like these scientist astronauts, and they, along with Ultraman, who will, I don't know if we'll get to in this episode, but they were these astronauts that discovered Viglanium, and because they were the ones that brought it back, they were the first ones kind of exposed to it. And I think, the more I think about it, I think he was on the same team as Dr. Ray and Insect Man, and they had like a love triangle thing, and I think Morph might have eventually left. Morph, like every superhero named Morph, was a shapeshifter. He could change his appearance, and that was kind of it as far as his powers. But like he was the most capable shapeshifter I think that I had, in that he could he had the least limitations to the ability, because all the astronauts from that was supposed to have increased strength, or not strength, but increased abilities due to that that early exposure and that prolonged exposure. Although I think the science team I'm thinking of might not have actually been on the actual expedition that brought the rocks back like Ultraman was, but I think they were the ones like researching it and stuff. Because I remember them being like, I think scientists, when I'm trying to remember their origin story, so maybe I'm off base in saying that they were actually astronauts on the ship. I don't remember. It's hard sometimes for me to tell the difference between a memory and something I'm just making up. But I think, at the very least, I am pretty confident that he was supposed to be like a romantic rival of Insect Man in Dr. Ray's life. I don't remember if she actually ended up with either of them. If I was writing it today, probably not. But yeah, that's more. Okay, moment here. He was okay. I mentioned in another episode that I had a character who I knew could see slightly into the future, and I thought it might have been Lady Morrow, and that might still have been her power, but that was definitely Moment's power. That he could see, I don't remember what the exact time was, but he could see a specific amount of time into the future. And it was possible that he always saw that far into the future, and so he had to like react like that amount of time slower to things. And I think there was going to be some story about him having to adjust because of that. But there's not a lot more to that. I don't know if you can tell by the way I shaded it, but he was supposed to have kind of like a metallic skin tone. I don't remember what color, if he was going to be a metallic color, but I remember he was supposed to have like a weird look to him like that. But that's all I remember for a moment. I don't think I remember anything about his stories or anything. I just remember that power. Phantom Femme was my attempt to make a French superhero, and I think I would have done the name differently now. But she operated in France. She had ghost powers. She basically, like, if you look at her outfit here, you can probably see the inspiration. But she basically had Danny Phantom's power set. And she had a sidekick who was a kid who also had the same power set. And the same outfit. And he basically was Danny Phantom. And I think he's probably the next one. But, yeah, that was kind of it. She was just a European superhero. She was on that European Union team. I don't even have to look to remember that she was a member of that team. And she had a few different adventures. There's a couple of characters I remember being tied to her. But basically, she had these powers, and then eventually she found Phantom Kid, who became her sidekick. And she just found this this boy that was kind of living on the streets who had the same powers as her. Kind of, I think coincidentally. I don't think there was a reason why they had the same powers, but she took him under her wing, and he became her sidekick. And he was also like a tertiary member of that Teen Titans type group of teen superheroes. And yeah, that was kind of it. They just I thought the Danny Phantom powers were cool, like the flight and an enhanced strength, but not like Superman level strength, and ability to turn invisible or go through walls. I don't remember if they had like some of the later powers he developed later in that series, but they were basically just based off of Danny Phantom, because I thought that it would be cool to have a character like that in a more traditional shared superhero universe along the lines of Marvel and DC instead of like, because in Danny Phantom's universe he's basically the only superhero with a few exceptions for certain episodes. So I thought it would be cool to see how those characters fit into that kind of setting. Power Man here was a very early character. He was just ripped off of Power Man. I had, when I was a kid, I had like 4 copies of this anti-smoking PSA comic that had Power Man and Spider-Man and Storm from the X-Men fighting this smoke-themed villain. And there's a villain based off that villain later when we get further into these when we get into the villains. But I had made a character named Power Man, and then later I saw Luke Cage, so I revised him. And I feel like this design here, even though, like, I feel like this was based off of a wrestler, but I don't remember who, like the coat and the glasses. Because I didn't want to just dress him up like Luke Cage was, because I could have just made him exactly like Luke Cage and still called him Power Man. But basically, he was a powerful man. That's really all I remember about Power Man. I want to say he was another member of that group with Dr. Ray, but I'm not sure. He was definitely a member of a group. I don't remember if it was Dr. Ray's group or not. If he was a member of that group, I don't think he was part of their origin story of being the like scientists researching Vibranium. But I think he was in there with Insect Man and Morph and Mecha and Dr. Ray. Dr. Ray was the leader of that group. I don't know if I mentioned. So, okay, we'll pick up here. I just looked at the time. We'll pick up here next week, but we'll talk about Scion and start there. So, thanks again for watching. Sorry if I went a little bit over. I got caught up in remembering some of these characters I haven't thought about in years. But I'll see you all next week if you're still interested in finding out more about these characters I made. Bye.